Hi, my name is Nathalie Richards, and I am the CEO and founder of EduKit. And I am absolutely delighted to invite you and welcome you to this, our sixth annual TeachMeet. Typically, these TeachMeets happen in person at Google's head offices in central London. But given the year we're having, that's obviously not appropriate. So we've taken this event online. But that has the advantage of us being able to reach far more teachers to engage them in this conversation. So I'm really, really excited about today's event. So what are we going to be discussing? This year has been dominated by two very, very important developments. So first of all, the COVID-19 crisis, and secondly, the Black Lives Matter movement. And what we thought was really important was to be able to engage teachers in a conversation around how to improve outcomes in education for all students, and notably those from Black backgrounds. So I would definitely invite you to actively share on Twitter. This is going to be the hashtag. Also, please do engage with me. You can see my Twitter handle and the Twitter handle for EduKit. Quick housekeeping, we are going to be keeping to a very, very strict timeline tonight. We have an awful lot to get through, so we will be finishing promptly at 7:30 p.m. UK time. We will have a break, a comfort break for about 10 minutes in the middle, and this is being recorded. So if you or colleagues want to be able to look back on this presentation, you're very, very welcome to do so. And there's a free giveaway. I'll be explaining a bit more about this when we get to the interval around 6:45, as I said. And here are some of the fantastic prizes that are going to be on offer, but I'll be explaining a bit more about those later. So first of all, for those of you who are not as familiar with EduKit, we are a social enterprise committed to improving outcomes in education for all students, but with a focus on those students from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we're working with schools across the UK and even further afield to improve outcomes for students. And we tend to have a focus on wellbeing and mental health. And typically our TeachMeets have been on those themes. We've also just launched an app for students and teachers, and I'll also be telling you a little bit more about that during the event. So why are we here today, and why have we chosen to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement? Well, obviously triggered by the horrific events that we saw in the US earlier this year in terms of the brutal murder of George Floyd, there's been a wave of public interest across the globe in terms of eradicating racism and improving outcomes and life opportunities for Black people. And that is also incredibly important when we talk about education, because we know there are huge disparities in terms of the outcomes for children from Black backgrounds in particular. So let's just have a look at some headline stats with regards to the UK. So in 2018, there were over 70 knife crime murders from my statistics and readings. And we can see that a hugely disproportionate number of those impacted particularly boys from Black backgrounds. Sadly, children from Black backgrounds are 3 times more likely than their peers to be excluded, permanently excluded from school. And when we look at unpicking those exclusions, some can even be excluded for wearing their natural hair. If we look at those who manage to gain places at top universities, again, those are disproportionately lower than their peers. And even in the teaching profession, we don't have enough Black teachers, and that's particularly the case when it comes to the most senior levels of the education hierarchy. So those are some of the themes that we're going to be talking about today, and I'm so excited about the presenters that are going to be sharing with us. So very quickly, this is a brief glance at the schedule and the lineup for today. As I said, we do have that comfort break in the middle at 6:45. And then afterwards, we will be wrapping up and finishing promptly at 7:30. So that's everything from me at the moment. As I said, please do engage in the conversation on Twitter. And also, if you have any questions, please do add those to the comment section. We do have somebody who's monitoring that, who will be sharing those comments with me in the studio, because there'll be an opportunity for Q&A during each of the presentations. So let's get the show on the road. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce our first speaker, who's Sabrina Edwards, who's going to be talking about the quest for Anti-Racist Education. And I would invite all of the speakers to please introduce yourselves as you start to present. So over to you, Sabrina.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for introducing me. So yes, my name is Sabrina Edwards. I am the Director of Educating for Equality. We are an education consultancy that offer support for schools who are on the journey to becoming anti-racist and gender equal schools. As well as that, I'm also a currently serving primary head teacher in London. So I have to attempt to summarise the huge topic of anti-racist education now into 5 minutes, so I will do my very best. I think anti-racism has become a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but anti-racist research has a long history here in the UK and abroad, with over 20 to 30 years of researched informed practice that schools can take on board when they're looking at developing anti-racism. Sorry, my slides aren't changing here. Okay, so to start off with, any work to do with embedding anti-racism in schools has to start with the school leaders. It requires a huge amount of courageous leadership, of bravery from those school leaders to ask themselves the difficult questions. That requires a lot of emotional intelligence from them in terms of unpicking their own internal biases, in terms of unpicking their own privileges. And for some leaders, this is work they've not had to do before, and it is uncomfortable. But we have to essentially move past those feelings of discomfort in order to create the ethos and culture in the school, in our schools, that will eventually embed anti-racism into the very fabric of our schools, to make sure that the mistakes that continue to happen across generations do end. In terms of the ethos and culture of the school, it's really important that the approach is explicit, not watered down with well-meaning but essentially ineffective multiculturalism. I sometimes liken that to people who were taught to Black Lives Matter with All Lives Matter. Yeah, of course, all lives matter, but that's not really helping the case at hand. And it's the same, I feel, in terms of having focusing on diversity and multiculturalism isn't necessarily addressing racism head on, which is what needs to happen in schools. The leaders themselves have to create those opportunities for school staff to have those difficult conversations as well. And you can't do that as a leader if you haven't embarked on that journey yourself. And it is very, very personal work. So therefore, the culture that you have in your school as a whole has to be one of openness, has to be one of honesty, and has to be one where you can have those really tricky conversations and get feelings out in the open so that you can move forward and take the actions that are necessary. Being able to discuss and really explore the concept of whiteness and how that is how that's engineered through our curriculum, so that we can begin to unpick that in schools and start to undo some of the damage. Sorry, let me move on. So in terms of the curriculum, it can't just be a tokenistic add-on to the curriculum. It has to be fully embedded in all areas, from the pedagogy to the resources you use, to the curriculum design, to the language and the vocabulary that teachers use in the classroom. Teachers have to reflect on how they can make their classrooms even safer for and representative of the marginalised communities that they serve. It involves a holistic look at everything involved in schools, so the local community, thinking about the parental demographics that you have, thinking carefully about what education they might need in order to address areas of anti-racism. And then finally, having a good look at your policies and procedures. employers have to really critically evaluate and address racism at a systemic level. Have you got any glass ceilings that you need to shatter? How representative are the people that either choose to go on leadership courses or are selected to attend leadership courses? Does your workforce represent the local community and your school as a whole? I think also a thing to think about in terms of policies and procedures is looking at everything through an anti-racist lens. From the procedures from the admin team on the desk to the things that the teachers are teaching in the classroom. It's not a tick box exercise, and it's not a project, and anti-racism is not an initiative. It's none of these things. It is our social responsibility to embed all of these things into the fabric of the school, as I said earlier, as continuous learning and continuous action. Just because you've done all of those things doesn't mean the work has stopped. Essentially, it's a continuous quest, really, to continue to improve, continue to tweak the practice within the school, continue to make things better for our future generations. If you'd like some support with any of this, and you're a school leader or you're a middle leader, or you're a teacher and you want to take this back to your school, please just contact us and I'm sure we can do something to support. So thank you for listening. Hi, Natalie. I can't actually hear you. I think you've been on mute this whole time.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, start again. Apologies there. Yeah, so we're just saying, in terms of the management of a school and driving that cultural change, how do we ensure that in terms of behaviour management, that's being done in a way that's really fair and inclusive for all, especially when we have examples of children being disciplined for wearing their natural hair, as an example?
Yeah, that's why I think the policies are so vital. Every policy you introduce, you have to think about that's going to impact the different communities that you have in your school. In terms of the behaviour policy, thinking really carefully about the language that you choose to use to describe groups of children. And I think you can only really work on those things if you've got a really high quality training programme in place where teachers and not just teachers, but the whole of the school community and all of the staff have that opportunity to really think about their own unconscious biases and how their own social identities can have an impact on their professional life, because we all bring a bit of ourselves and we all bring what we've been taught. So, we can't just fix the surface. We've got to go back and fix the policies and fix the kind of inherent messages that are coming through the education system, so that the people who are in charge are delivering the right messages to children and making sure that, if in terms of discipline and behaviour, especially for larger schools, really looking in depth at your data. What does your data tell you about the children who are being excluded and what they're being excluded for? And do you need to go back and put in some more support for those students rather than just excluding them at the other end, once they've broken a rule or acted out in some way?
Yeah. Brilliant. I think a data-driven approach is always fantastic, and I wonder whether also having a diverse board as well, a board of governors, maybe with parent governors from diverse backgrounds, can also help to drive some of that cultural change. Another quick question is around when you talked about anti-racism. I think one of the really interesting things this year that's happened in terms of the public narrative is that it's no longer acceptable just to say, well, I'm not racist, and
Yes.
leave it at that. There's this whole movement around, well, if I'm not actively participating as an ally and as a voice of anti-racism, then to a certain extent, I'm not being part of the change. So
Yeah.
what ways do you see that maybe the students within schools can start to really embrace that message and feel that they have agency in the world to be able to change, the issues that they see in our society?
That's a really great question. I think depending on the age group, they can access, learning in various ways. Obviously, the older they are, the more they can engage with those debates and discussions really openly in the classroom. And I think it's for the teachers really to create those opportunities for their students to have those open debates. But if the teacher's too scared to do it, or the teachers themselves don't have the right vocabulary or haven't done the work themselves, they're not going to create those opportunities for children. And I think, it comes through, certainly in early years and when they're very little, they're probably not going to have those conversations. But I think the more that they see kind of representation in the resources and things that they use, and the more that they see that their curriculum is representative not just of them, but of the global society, and isn't just kind of the colonizers' view, a very Western Eurocentric view, then those opportunities will begin to present themselves.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I've really enjoyed your talk, and that's probably a really good segue to our next presenters, actually, because next up we have Lavinia Stennett, who's the CEO of the Black Curriculum, and we also have Jackson, who is the CEO of Fix Up Team, and they're both going to be talking about Black British history, as well as the legacy of empire in learning. So over to Lavinia, first of all, to share your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for putting this together. And hi, everybody. My name is Lavinia. I'm the CEO of the Black Curriculum, which is a social enterprise that works to teach Black history all year round in all schools, to all young people, 365 days. So our main kind of hashtag is TPH365, which I'll explain in a little bit more detail. But before I get there, our aims are to improve a sense of identity and belonging, because currently as it stands, and I think this is underway now, Black British history is not explicitly on the national curriculum, and it's not in school curriculums in a way that is integral and explicitly stated. So a lot of students are not receiving elements of British history that are empowering and actually seek to give them an accurate sense of what has happened in history. So without that, students are lacking parts of their identity, parts of how to communicate and connect and empathize with different communities. So through the teaching of Black history, we're aiming to be able to improve a sense of identity, but also create social cohesion. So if we just have a small think, maybe just drop a line in the chat. What aspects of Black history did you learn in school? Well, I can tell you I learned roots. I had one session in primary school that was mainly focused on Black inventors, but that was in Black History Month. And again, it had a very US-centered approach. It wasn't about Black British history. It was only until I got to university that I started to learn about it. And I thought, well, if I'm learning this now, why did I not learn this when I was younger? And surely there must be other people as well who are going through the same kind of change in mindset. So just a few figures here. This is based off a poll that we worked in collaboration with Impact of Omission, who are a student group. So 72% of Brits learned about the Battle of Hastings, 8% learned about the role of British colonization of Africa, 86% of Brits learned about the Tudors in school, whereas 9% learned about the role of slavery in the British Industrial Revolution. So there is a huge disparity there. Needless to say, the impacts of that it's an omission, and it is thinking about what we're really kind of giving to our young people, not only for their education to succeed in school, but what happens after, what happens when they actually go into the world and start to communicate with people and start to kind of form their ideas and policies and become, leaders of tomorrow if they haven't got this information. So we founded last year. So the Black Curriculum is mainly working with schools to deliver teacher training, school workshops through our curriculum that we developed, but we also provide to students sessions outside of school that upskill them As well as that, we also campaign. So here I am last year with an MP with the Running Me Trust. We worked in collaboration to kind of raise awareness with MPs on the importance of Black British history. And we also launched a report called the Black Curriculum Report 2020, which basically explores the omission of Black history in the national curriculum. So without coming to know the past, we don't know where we're going. These pictures warm my heart because it is about including all young people in the conversation from primary and secondary across all races, because it's our history and it should be a part of the narrative, right? So this is just some of the work that we've done. And this is how you can find out more about us. So you've got the Black Curriculum on Instagram, on Twitter, we're Curriculum Black, and our website is theblackcurriculum.com. Thank you.
The end of this session, but next up is Jackson from the Fix Up team. Do we have Jackson?
Yes, we do. Good evening, everyone. This is Action Jackson. I am the UK Ambassador for Happiness, and I've only got 3 minutes. I'm going to pass this message on to you. Thank you so much for all the presenters that have been on here. And listen to this. It's important to run together, and run starts for something. Listen, here we go. Run, 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 run together. Run, 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 run together. I run with you, you run with me. We run together forever and ever. Run, 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 run together. Run, 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 run together. You can tap that in a comment. Run, 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 run together. What does it mean to run together? For me, Black History Month is all about the story of gratitude. The fact that I stand on the shoulders of giants in order to do what I do. Why is it important to teach it in the curriculum? I think everybody needs to learn more about other people's history, because when we know where we're coming from, it gives us strength to know where we are going. See, I was born in the UK, but I grew up in Nigeria, where I got to eat a lot of good food, good Nigerian food. As a UK Ambassador for Happiness, I can say I do what I do, but if it wasn't for the fact that I stood on the shoulders of giants, it's impossible. This is my daughter here, Olivia, 5 months old. I want her to learn that balloons do not float because of their color. Balloons float because of their content. See, she doesn't know much right now, and I'm going to have to teach her my history that's paved with beauty, excellence, and identity. What does it mean to run together? Well, this is the message we need to give to our kids on a day-to-day basis. As the director of my company, we go around to different schools inspiring young people to dream big. And some of these young people don't know who they are. So if I don't know who I am, how can I dream big? It's impossible to dream big if I don't know who I am. And when you know about your history, you realize that, wow, I come from a long line of powerful people. So you know what? Let me tap into my greatness. Run, 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 run together. I run with you. You run with me. We run together forever and ever. What does run stand for? Well, the R is to respect yourself and others. That's so important, to show admiration, because we're all coming from somewhere. The U is to understand. Watch the quote now. Many people want to be understood, but you need to first of all understand before you could be understood. This is empathy. Empathy for the journey. And earn is to nurture one another. That's how we run together. That's how we rise together. That's how we win together. So whatever we do, let's make sure we run, 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 run together. I run with you. You run with me. We run together forever and ever. I've got some resources that's going to help people run together. fixuponlineacademy.com. Tap into that. Thank you so much for EduKit for making this happen. Let's together run together. Run, 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 run together. I run with you. You run with me. We run together forever and ever. Run, 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 run together. Thank you.
Go, Jackson. Thank you. You know I'm going to be humming that all night. And most of tomorrow as well. Run, 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 run together. Exactly. And first of all, thank you so much. I know you only stepped in today, so that's phenomenal. So pleased to have you be part of this event. Right, we don't have very much time for questions. I'm going to have a quick look to see if there are any coming from the floor. Let me have a quick look. There's a bit of a delay in terms of getting the questions come through. So if anybody has any, please do post those. But I would just say, maybe I'll just ask a quick question around the type of content that you have. So Lavinia, first of all, great presentation. Can you talk to the content that you have that you could actually share with schools so they can make sure that their curriculum is far more inclusive and representative, obviously, of our diverse history?
Definitely. Thanks, Jackson. That was so uplifting. So with our resources, we have an array of digital and also physical. The main thing, obviously, is the curriculum. And that curriculum is full of PowerPoints, lesson handouts, research guides for teachers to be able to kind of roll that out in their classrooms. And the way that they can get in contact with us to get that is through emailing bookings@theblackcurriculum.com. And you can go to our website. The other kind of set of digital things that we're running is podcasts, as well as digital animations, which we're looking to extend into a wider resource bank that will be available in the winter of this year. So from December towards January, and that will include an array of resources for primary and secondary. And we have some on our YouTube pages, but there's also some to access on our Instagram as well. But yeah, those are the main ones.
Perfect. And just to confirm, this is much broader than just slavery as an example and colonization. Do you have a rich array of content that also profiles maybe Africa before colonization and lots of other positive stories about Black history and Black accomplishment?
Yeah, when we speak about Black history, it has to predate European colonial enslavement because that's not the origins of our history in Britain. So yeah, we do include narratives that are very historical, but also kind of positive as well. So that encompasses the fuller narratives of Black British history. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And again, I'm just conscious of time. There's not enough time. It's really running away with us. But Jackson, I just want to bring you in quickly. And what's your approach to teaching Black history and really empowering? As you said, you're all about happiness. So Black students, all students, to really embrace history and positivity.
Yeah, it's all about helping the students to understand their identity, their purpose, and their vision. But it starts with identity. So when we go into schools, whether you're Black, Asian, or wherever you come from, understand that identity piece is a very important piece. You can't help someone to achieve unless they understand who they are. And when they understand who they are, they have a richness of power and energy to run forward, you know. And it's like the Avengers. They all come from different angles with different pain, different energies. But when they come together, they can achieve greatness. So it's all about helping them to dream big and to go for happiness.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Two fantastic presenters. You can reach out to them each directly if you want to be able to engage with their content, or you can just drop us a note at educators or edukit.org.uk, and we will connect you with them if you want to get your hands on some of their great content. So thanks again, guys. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Right, so we're going to move on now. So if we can just present one of my slides again, I'm just going to allow you to see my screen. I just very quickly want to talk and support that we have as EduKit as well that we're offering to schools. Now at this stage, if you are a Google school, so you're a G Suite school or a Google Classroom school, we can offer you this entirely for free. So please do email us at info@educators.org.uk if you would like to take advantage of this. If you're not in a Google school, then we can also help you, but you might need to allocate some budget for that. But essentially, we are doing e-mentoring sessions, understanding that this is a difficult year for on-site intervention, where students are mentored on the role of technology and business. As you know, I'm the CEO of EduKit. We're a social enterprise, so we'll talk about what social enterprise is, and they'll be encouraged to develop their own social enterprise plan, but around the topic of racial justice. So they'll be thinking about different ideas for going out into the world as business people and making the world a much fairer, more inclusive place. It's a really good opportunity to combine digital literacy, because we'll be using Google tools such as Google Docs, Google Sheets, being able to create presentations and other content on Google, and combining that with a really powerful message around the agency that each child has in order to make a difference in the world. So they're 1 hour sessions that we are, as I said, making them available. If you are a Google school, if you're not, get in touch anyway, and we might be able to find some way to be able to help you. At the end, any student groups who come together and actually submit their business plan, there will be a competition, and the winning team will get a voucher worth £500. It's up to the school what they'd like that voucher to be spent on. It can be something for the school library, or it can be something for the students who are participating directly. It's up to the teachers, but it will be a value of £500. So we definitely invite you to participate if you think that this would be of interest to your students. So again, it's about digital literacy and creating their own social enterprise business plans so they can go out in the world and make a difference in terms of racial justice and equality. So that was just a very brief interlude. So we should now be ready, and this, I have to say, this first half is just whizzing by, but we should now be ready for our first direct kind of fireside chat and Q&A, which is actually going to be with Charles Francis. Now, Charles Francis is a Safer Schools officer within the Met Police. And when I was doing my introduction, I was talking about some of what we see in terms of the disparities, certainly in the capital city of London, around violent crime affecting particularly boys from an African Caribbean background. So I really want to kind of unpick that and allow Charles an opportunity to be able to share some of the thoughts coming from the Met. And we can also ask some provocative questions about how we can keep young people safe in London. So I hopefully that Charles is on screen.
Hi there, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hi, Charles.
And hi, Natalie.
Great
Yeah,
to see you in uniform.
Excellent. Once again, thank you very much for putting on this event. It's really important to address racial equality in all organisations, and obviously we all want our younger generation to thrive and have their full potential as well. And obviously, as well as Black Lives Matter, you don't often hear it from a police perspective. And so, introduce myself. I'm Charles Francis. Like Natalie said, I'm a Safer Schools officer. I've been in the Met for over 10 years. Work in different organisations. Currently a Safer Schools officer, which is a role I actually chose because I feel much more engaged and it's much more purposeful for me to work with young children and try to make that little difference as well. So
perfect. In summary, perhaps if there are people who aren't familiar with the role of Safer Schools officers, what does that mean in practice?
So basically, every school will have their own designated Safer Schools officer, and what it is basically is that we're that point of contact for the teachers, parents, and pupils. So whenever a child has any concerns to do with the law, or the parents have any issues, we can make that bridge. So you can come directly to us, and then we can investigate it, and we can talk to you, and we could just so we can do that link of investigating the crime and dealing with the incident. So it's directly linked to the school and to the parents instead of
great.
Other officers.
Perfect. And is it right is my understanding right that every school in London is linked to at least to a Safer Schools officer, and that person might spend some time on the school premises? They're not based there, but they'll be assigned to a school. Is that right?
That's right. That's correct. Every school will have their own designated Safer Schools officer. Some schools, and you can work it. They work it how they work it with the school. Some schools will have officers that have a room inside the school, have an office inside the school, and they could be there based all the time. Other schools, there's limited schools officers in that borough. So one officer may have like 3 schools, so he might alternate the schools he goes to, kind of thing.
Fantastic. So I would definitely invite anybody in the comments to share any experiences perhaps they have of their Safer Schools officer, particularly if they're in the capital. Right. So Charles, a few questions from me before I open to the floor. So how would you explain the steep rise that we've seen over the last few years in terms of violent crime in the capital specifically?
Okay. How would I explain the steep rise of personally, from my personal point of view, I think that this is such a big issue here in terms of the rise in crime. I really believe it's more of a social and economical issue. It's not really a police issue, although it falls on us to protect the community and deter crime and prevent crime and stop it. It falls on us to do those things. But in terms of how why it's starting and why it's increasing, is more of a economical and social issue. Poverty, education, you know, self-esteem, all these things I believe are contributing to young boys and young boys in particular not having that sense of belonging, and you know, and also the rise of grooming and the way the misuse of online as well. You know, the way online is being misused to groom young children and stuff like that. You know, it's all adding to this increase of serious youth violence.
Okay, and within that context, what is the Met doing specifically in order to tackle youth violence? I appreciate that the Met's not solely responsible for what we're seeing, but how are they actually going about keeping young boys safe in London?
Yeah, so obviously it's our duty to have an active role. So we're doing quite a few things the Met are doing that obviously people don't see so often, but a lot of things we are doing. One of it is we increase, one of the important things are body-worn cameras. You know, our body-worn cameras are essential for us because they keep, there are second eyes on the street, so we can do things later in time. We're doing a lot of high visible patrols in targeted areas. So if we know an area already has got a history of some crime or an incident taking place in the area, we will increase the high visibility foot patrols from officers in uniform in there. So it's kind of keeping that area safe. And a lot of the work we're doing is not actually also on the ground. Is for example, I myself, I do a lot of presentations in schools, and my presentations around community safety, telling children how to go to and from school in a safe way. And I also, like Action Jackson, I really have that type of way of presenting my presentations to kids. So it's also building that self-esteem as well, building that confidence as well. So then they're less inclined to want to get involved in antisocial behavior and people that associate with that type of lifestyle. Okay. And then sorry to cut you. And also, like, we've got a lot of work getting done by the youth engagement team. I don't know if people are aware of the youth engagement team. They're kind of like as a schools officer deals with kids during the school time, the youth engagement take it on after school time. So they work with a lot of organizations that are already embedded in the community, like family hubs, council, youth workers, and they work closely with these people. And then they try to help kids. So instead of like from school loitering on the streets, they'll introduce them to different events like parkour or boxing or cadets and these sort of things that we do. All these things help keep the streets and to keep the community safe.
That's fantastic, and I'd love to delve a little bit around the youth engagement team specifically in a second, but I think it would be remiss of me not to kind of challenge you on how we can make sure that our policing is fair. So we know that black boys, black males in particular, disproportionately stopped and searched, and we've seen some quite high-profile cases where people feel that they've experienced racial profiling. And what ways is the Met looking to tackle that so that we can actually get a more positive relationship between the Met and the broader community?
Okay, that's an interesting. That's an interesting question, and it's a topic that the Met have been. I believe that the Met have been tackling for a long time, and and trying to address this issue of race relations between the Met and young black boys in particular. I know for myself, growing up as a young black boy, I never liked the police when I grew up, and it's strange. A lot of people who know me would say, how do you join the police? But as you go older, you want to make a difference. So anyway, so coming back to your question now. I think for me personally is when I do presentations with young black boys, I kind of to change their mindset about how they view the police, and I take it away from us against them. The idea of more black boys getting stopped and stopped by police, I kind of think a lot of that is to do with demographics as well. So, like, for example, if we was to take the statistics of an area that's highly populated with white people, then you're going to get more white people stop and search in that area. And if you take the area that's more highly populated with young black people, boys, then probably they're going to be seen as more a stop and search. I'm not saying that's right, or that is the only reason, but I do think that does contribute to the way we're seeing that when we say more black boys get stopped. I also feel
sometimes we do actually see 9. I think there's a horrible statistic that black boys are 9 times more likely to be stopped and searched than their peers in the capital, and who are not black, and that doesn't have anything to do with the actual proportions in terms of youth crime and youth violence. So I think it's a very difficult one to understand how we drive that cultural change in the Met, and I'm sure you can't present all of the answers today, but there definitely are concerns within the community that policing isn't fair.
What I would say about that is that I often do presentations about stop and search in schools. So I go to schools, primary schools as well. I think we have to really hit primary schools harder as well. So I go to primary schools and secondary schools, and I do presentations, basic presentations about stop and search, about what the entitlements are for the kids, how they should conduct themselves, what their rights are in terms of something, and it gives them a basic understanding. So they're not so. Because a lot of times when people get stopped and searched, you don't really see the background to what's actually happening, and it's easy to get your back up. And it's easy once you get your back up, and then you don't get a fair hearing. So I want to try to educate the kids to just relax. It's something that's been put in place for the benefit of everyone. Yeah. And if you relax and follow the procedure properly, then you won't be mistreated.
Okay, and that's a great point, actually. Can you just give a quick summary of what a young person's rights are with regards to stop and search? So if they feel that they've been unfairly targeted or they're uncomfortable, what does that look like? And I mean, we've only got 3 or 4 minutes left, unfortunately, but is there anything you can summarize there?
Well, basically, there's certain things that the officer must tell the person who's there being stopped and searched. Often they've got to identify who they are. They've got to tell them why, give them the grounds of why they're stopping and searching them. They've got to tell them that they're being detained for the search, and they've got to say they're entitled for a slip, a record of that stop and that search. And there's other things that they've got to tell, but sometimes it's not practicable to do it at the time. So they may do what they have to do and then later on tell them. But what I do also say to people is that if you really feel that you've been stopped and searched unfairly, you must challenge it. You must go, you go and tell, I tell the kids, go and tell your parents and encourage and tell your parents, look, they must go to the police station and report it. They must report that my son was, I believe my son was wrongly stop and search. Everything now in stop and search has to be done on a body worn camera. So there's evidence. It's not like we can't investigate it and see if it was done correctly. So I tell people to challenge, and we are human. Police officers are human. Some police officers make mistakes, but at the same time, our job is an accountable job. We have to be accountable for what we do.
Great. That's some great advice. And presumably it's not just parents, it's also the teachers maybe on this call, wherever they are in the UK. If their students come to them and they feel uncomfortable about an interaction they've had with the police, do they get the police the ID number? And then the school can also approach the police station on their behalf. Is that fair to say?
We would probably encourage the parents to, the school to link with the parents, and the parents to contact the police. Okay. Because otherwise the trail's a bit too long.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, we're running out of time a little bit, but I'm seeing some really positive comments on the chat about interactions with Safer Schools officers. So certainly a lot of schools are finding they've got a great relationship with your team. You talked a bit about when you were thinking about going into policing and the idea that it wasn't necessarily the first career path that you chose. No. From a personal perspective, I think that we need to see more diversity in policing, and that will drive a cultural change. Yeah, can you just, and I'll flash up some great opportunities within the Met for school leavers as well in a second. Can you talk to why you decided to join the police and what ways schools could encourage their students, their school leavers, to consider going into the police?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, personally, my lifestyle was totally different before I joined the police. And I think one of the reasons for me personally why I joined the police is I used to often hear my friends say that, oh, we don't like the police, we don't like the police. And I used to always think to myself, if you're going to try and change something, it's better you try and join them and then try and make that little difference by joining them. So that's why I joined the police, because I knew that I could speak to one or two people and change their mindsets about the police. But coming back to this key element that you said about why there's diversity in the police, and I strongly believe that we're seeing a bit more of it now, but a lot of it is us changing the young children's minds. So when I go and do presentations in schools, I try to empower the young Yeah, especially young black boys as well, that you can do anything you choose to do. You can look at me. If you want to be a police officer, that's fine. You can do it. Because a lot of times you see a lot of black and ethnic people in these types of organizations like the police, and they don't aspire to be leadership roles. Some of it is because they don't believe they can do it, and other is because they're still carrying that old mindset of when they joined in the first place, that they can't make a change. They can't make a change at the top level, so they don't even bother trying it. So we need to try and change that mindset of the new black people joining the police force, that they can have leadership roles. You can do it. You are more than equipped to take a leadership role, and the world is changing. The world is changing. It's becoming much more diverse now. So, you know, and the Met will change with it. Things will change with it.
Well, I think we might just need to leave it there on that optimistic note.
Right.
Thank you so much, Charles. We've run out of time already. But again, if anybody who's watching wants to engage with Charles or any of his colleagues, you can also drop us a note and we will connect you. I was actually part of a big police event yesterday talking to officers at the Met about ways of engaging schools, and they're certainly very, very keen to hear from you. So please do reach out to us. And thanks again, Charles.
And please let me encourage everyone, all the schools, make sure you get in contact with your Safer Schools officer and get that link going there, okay?
Perfect, thank you. And if we have any offline conversations, unfortunately, I haven't been, time is against us, but I will ping those to Charles and his colleagues if that's something that you'd like me to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Thank you.
Very much. So we are about to break. So I'm just going to share my slides again, and I hope that you can see these. Fingers crossed. If you can, what you'll be able to see is some of the opportunities that the Met currently have, which are school leaver opportunities for potentially for your students. Now, these are open to any student, but they're particularly keen to see students from BAME backgrounds, see girls as well go into policing, and from disadvantaged communities. The only requirement is a C in GCSE English, but you need to be at least 18 or over to join the Met. I think the starting salary is incredibly impressive. So if this is something that you're interested in promoting with your students, again, drop us an email, same email address, info@edukit.org.uk. So we are now going to break until 6:55. One thing I wanted to mention is our free giveaway. Very, very quickly, we have just launched a mobile app for students. It's basically about empowering students and providing students with agency around their mental health, their well-being, student voice. So we talked about being able to make a difference in the world around, it could be around racial justice, as we're talking about today, could be being an LGBTQ ally, could be in terms of the environment, or lots of other social challenges that they see. So we do empower students to have a voice. We can survey students and get a sense of the things that interest and drive them. And there is also a section on Black Lives Matter and Black history with lots of relatable role models who are students, again, just to help them to see some really great examples of excellence. So we have just launched this app. So what we wanted to do, if you would like to learn more about it, either because you can participate and give us some feedback in some way, because we'd love to hear what you think of what we're developing, or because you think that you might want to introduce the app at your school, then we're giving away £15 Amazon vouchers to anybody who books a demo in the month of October. So if you book a demo with us in October, you automatically, this is not a competition, everybody's going to get one as long as you book a demo with us in October. So if you want to do that, you can see the link. So it's TM 2020, fill that in, put in a date for your demo, and once your demo has taken place, we will be in contact with you about your gift card. If you do not like Jeff Bezos and his team, you can pick something else up to the voucher, the value of £15. So it can also be a book token or something else. I want to give you long enough for your break. By the way, there is also a competition. So there will be some Black History books and a hamper for the prize winner. Again, this is being combined with the demos. So what we're going to do is see all the people who booked a demo in the month of October, and then on Twitter, we will share the winner. And somebody will get a luxury hamper as well as these fabulous Black History books. And then 2 runners up will get an EduKit mug, as well as 1 Black History book. So please do make sure you book a demo. We'd love to hear what you think about what we're developing, because we really want to make sure it responds to the needs of your students and your school. So I am going to leave it there for a few minutes. I think we have only 5 minutes now for the break, but hopefully that's long enough for you to go grab a cup of tea, have a quick bathroom break, and then we will see you back here at 6:55 for the second half of this evening's presentations. Thanks, and see you in 5 minutes. Hi, so I hope you enjoyed your very brief break. We're going to get straight back on for the second part because we're looking to finish at 7:30 promptly. So first up, we have a great organisation called Mindful Equity, who are going to be talking about the role, diverse leadership, and how we can ensure that we have diverse leaders at all levels within schools. So hopefully we have Aretha and Yolande who are going to be speaking with us. There they are. Perfect. Can't hear you just yet.
Can you hear me now?
Perfect. Yes. So over to you, ladies.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you to Natalie and the EduKit team for inviting myself and Aretha to be a part of this event. So as Natalie said, my name is Yolande Harrowell. I'm an assistant head teacher and co-founder of Mindful Equity UK. And on the screen, you can also see Aretha Banton, who is equally co-founder of Mindful Equity, but is also an associate vice principal at an inner London school. So I'd like to begin by explaining who we are and what we're about in Mindful Equity. So during the beginnings of Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter movement in the UK, Aretha and I had some in-depth conversations. I think it's important to say that we both were working on the same senior leadership team. We were concerned about the lack of representation within education and also reflecting on our career journeys and what it took for us to both become senior leaders in education today. On reflection, we realised and acknowledged that it wasn't purely a straight route. We also identified that it took having positive allies, champions, if you will, in our career journey who identified our strengths, were honest and were those critical friends to improve us and refine our skills for us to then be put forward and encouraged to go into leadership positions. However, those conversations happened quite late, much later on in our career journeys, and often that is the experience of most Black and Asian women in education. We believe strongly that early intervention is most certainly the best way to improve representation across education, not only in a London centred way, but also a national way. So Aretha will now wonderfully come in and introduce some of the work that we do.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining today, and massive thank you to Natalie, and a massively great event. Thank you so much for inviting us to be part of it. So we started Mindful Equity to really boost the career prospects of Black and Asian women in education. So Yolande and I both realised that through our pathways, actually there were a lot of barriers that were similar to both of us. And we felt when we started to ask other people, those barriers were common to them as well. So one of the things we really wanted to hone down on was what actually happens in the early parts of the career journey, and how can we enhance that experience for Black and Asian women so that actually when they get to a point where they're able to move into middle or senior leadership, that skill set is embedded, that skill set is already there. They're not learning on the job, they're learning and preparing for that job from the moment they set in to teacher training or into their NQT year. And so we created Mindful Equity as that support mechanism. So actually in the early stages of the careers, teachers, Black and Asian women teachers, are able to identify what the issues are, look to the solutions, and actually forge forward with their careers. And it was really important to us to look beyond the classroom. So being a classroom practitioner is great, and that's wonderful. But actually, if you want to move into leadership, there's so much more that you need to learn. And we wanted to put all of that skill set, all of that knowledge, all of that support right in at the earliest stages. And that's really what got us into creating this whirlwind journey of Mindful Equity UK. And we also look to support people through the actual consultancy work that we do. So we work with companies around diversity and leadership, and actually how to embed that and how to make that journey part of the whole experience, so that when Black and women join the career journey in their new schools, that support mechanism is built into that process, those policies, those frameworks. And that's really our journey so far. I mean, we're running out of time, so it's a very, very brief snapshot, but hopefully you'll follow us and you'll learn a bit more about what we do, basically. Anything to add, Yolande? I think we're bang on time.
think we are bang on time. I think one thing it's important to note is that it's a movement and most certainly not a moment in time. And we're very much trying to disrupt the education system from within, being educators and senior leaders who are working in the field while trying to bring about the necessary change. Oh, we can't hear you, Natalie.
When will I get the message? Thank you so much. And as I was saying, sorry, we've heard such great things about the work that you do. So I'm really excited to have you participate. So clearly there's not enough time for questions, but I would invite anybody who wants to reach out to you, either to reach out to you directly, or if you're not sure, come to us, because and we will connect you with the Mindful Equity team, because obviously leadership and diversity in leadership is just so incredibly important in this whole conversation. We can't drive change if we're not represented. So thanks so much again. Really appreciate your participation. And we're going to very quickly move on to our next presenter. So we have Manny, who is actually a Senko, I believe. Hi, Manny, at a pupil referral unit. So I think it's really, really interesting to hear about his own personal experience and his role and some of the insights that he's gleaned. So over to you, Manny.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you for having me. Just a correction, by the way. So I don't actually work at a pupil referral unit. I work in an SEMH school, so a school for children with social, emotional, and mental health issues, which is similar to a PRU, but with our students, all of our students have a diagnosis and they have a permanent place in our school in comparison to a PRU. So yeah, my name is Emmanuel. Often go by Manny. I'm a primary school teacher. I'm a Senko, and I'm also director of a charity program called the Reach Out Project. I'm going to try and keep this as brief as possible in 3 minutes. So I guess essentially, the reason why I became a teacher was actually because of my negative experience in school. So when I was in year 5, I experienced my first permanent exclusion. And then I had a similar experience in year 10, which for me was quite a significant moment in my life, just because, one, I was due to take my GCSEs the following year, and 2, being the eldest in my family and coming from a Nigerian background, school exclusions, I think, was something that my family really struggled to deal with. And so when I talk about education and the education system failing me as a student, I'm also quick to remind myself that actually it failed my family in that sense as well. And so when I think about education, I have quite a complicated relationship with it, because although I had a very negative experience as a child, I also understand the value of education and how important it is for the young people that we teach every day. And so aside from the microaggressions and the school exclusions and the marginalization that I felt during my school experience, one of the key things that stood out for me is I had very few role models. And when I talk about role models, a lot of people assume that maybe there wasn't a father figure at home or that there wasn't men around me, but actually I had both of my parents at home. And my dad is someone who has always been an advocate for education, always valued it, particularly because his own personal experience of education was quite difficult in Nigeria. So he really, really pushed on us to get the most out of education. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I left school with only 4 GCSEs, 4 A to Cs, which then led to me being behind, wasn't able to take my A-levels on time. And yeah, just kind of a sequence of events that basically really made it very difficult for me to get to where I needed to get to. And so the issue with role models wasn't that I didn't have a father figure at home, but my primary experience, I only came across one primary school teacher that was a male, and it wasn't a black guy. And so I think I had my first black male teacher when I was in secondary school, and even then they were very rare. It wasn't something I saw quite regularly, and I think that was part of the reason why I struggled in school. I think not having advocates in school, not having people that could represent me really, really played a massive part in why I struggled in school. And so when I made the decision to become a teacher, it was really to change the narrative for young people who had experiences like myself, and to be the role model that I never saw in school. And so with that said, I think education at this point in time, it requires a reform, but knowing that I've only got 30 seconds left, I think that we do need more black educators, particularly males, and particularly in the primary department. As a primary school teacher, I know what it's like to walk into a classroom and to change the narrative by just being myself. And I think many stereotypes are broken just by my presence in the classroom, as well as being the teacher that I am. And I think it's not just for our Black students, I think it's for everybody. Diversity is important because we grow from being able to see and to be able to share different experiences with people from all kinds of cultures and from different races. And I think that's something that my children have been able to experience. And I always wonder to myself, if I wasn't there, you know, would certain questions that I'm able to answer, would they be answered in the classroom? And, you know, lastly, I'm going to leave it with this. I taught a lesson last week. I'm currently looking at Nelson Mandela's autobiography with my class. And one of my students, British boy, he asked, you know, sir, in Africa, do people still live in huts? Are African people still poor? And I thought to myself, I just thought, he's not asking this out of, you know, he's not being malicious, and he's not being intentionally, you know, ignorant. He's genuinely asking because he doesn't understand. And I think for that moment there just showed me why representation matters, because I could answer him that question. I could answer that question, and I could answer it with detail. And he could leave that question with an understanding that actually, you know what, I now know a bit more than what I would have known if maybe Mr. A wasn't there in the classroom. So just a reminder that I think representation definitely matters. And I've probably gone over my time now. It's very difficult to summarize that, but yeah, so I'm just going to leave it as that for now.
Thank you so much. You know, I really, really enjoyed that. And you're right, representation does matter. And I think your presence is so powerful. I would also say, because a lot of the time we get this sense that young people are written off. Something happens and then nobody sees their future potential. And I've also been reading the autobiography of Sir Richard Branson. And there's a point at which one of his teachers says, you're either going to be a millionaire or you're going to be in jail someday. Right. Yeah. So sometimes it really is that the same sorts of sort of attributes, you stand out and you're willing to speak your mind, and it means that you can have this bright and fantastic future. But sometimes if you're perceived in the wrong way, then it can send you down a completely different path. So you're absolutely right. It's all about representation. Thank you so much. We don't have time for any additional questions, but really, really grateful to hear your contribution. If anybody wants to reach out to Manny, please do that on Twitter, or you can contact the EduKit team and we will put you in touch.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Right, so we're going to move straight on. So our next contribution is going to be from Hannah Wilson, who's going to talk about how to be an inclusive ally. So over to you, Hannah, if you are in the studio.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Wilson and I am the co-founder of Diverse Educators. So what is allyship? Allyship is a journey. Allyship is about doing the work. It isn't a label we wear with pride. It is about us committing to standing alongside our colleagues. And I think a reminder about, yes, it's October and yes, it's Black History Month, but you're not Black for 31 days in the year. Our Black and brown colleagues are Black every single day. 365, 24/7. So it's about us standing alongside one another. So why is it important to be an ally? Ultimately, it's about humanity. It's about us being human beings, recognizing and seeing everybody for what they bring. It's also about us realizing that there are inequities in the world and we need to be part of the solution to addressing those inequities. But it's also about us checking our privilege. And it's about us being really aware of different people have different obstacles, and people's journeys are trickier than perhaps our own were. It's about us having empathy, and it's about us having awareness of that lived experience. So how do we show up? How do we become allies? It's about a commitment. It's about learning, and it's about listening. It's about being active and doing the work. It's about standing in solidarity. It's about confronting those people who other our peers. It's about challenging the isms, the prejudice, the discrimination that we see day in, day out. It's about us acknowledging that we have got things to learn, that we need to grow, and that this work never stops. So what does allyship look like and feel like? If you're a man who stands alongside a woman, you're a he for she who supports the glass ceiling. If you're a white person who stands alongside a Black person, you're smashing the concrete ceiling for our Black colleagues. If you are a heterosexual person standing alongside someone who's LGBTQI, you're helping them navigate the gay glass ceiling. And so it goes on. Every person with a protected characteristic needs somebody who is an ally to help them combat those obstacles and those barriers. So 7 tips, 7 things we can all do. Number 1, stand up and speak out. Don't be silent. Don't be passive. Don't let these things happen. Number 2, transfer the benefits of your own privilege. One thing you can do is share the mic, for example, if you speak at events. Number 3, you may acknowledge that you are hurt and you are upset, but the conversation is not about you. It's about the person who is the direct experience of racism or prejudice. Number 4, own your mistakes and try and decenter yourself from the situation. Number 5, understand it is your responsibility to get educated. Don't ask Black people and brown people to tell you what you need to read and tell you what you need to know. Number 6, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, as Sabrina said. This is messy work, it's complex. Roll your sleeves up and get stuck in. And number 7, create safe spaces psychologically and physically for people to have these difficult conversations. So my pledge is to be an upstander, not a bystander, to be active, not passive, and to show up and speak out. Please join me.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And having seen you speak publicly, I can absolutely say that you will tell it like it is. I was at an event talking about diversity, and you called out the fact that there was nobody diverse on the panel. I just thought, you go, girl. And this is long before everybody was doing that. So you're certainly very courageous, outspoken, and happy to be in those uncomfortable places where we need that dialogue. So anything else that you would add for somebody who's starting on that journey, who maybe is now starting to question their privilege or question how they might be able to stand up for others? You've obviously given lots of quick tips, but where does that start? Does it start in the classroom? Does it start at speaking events? Like, how does somebody actually just get started in terms of being an ally?
I think it starts with the library. Now, I think ultimately there's so many great texts out there. Follow people on Twitter, consciously diversify your network, because a lot of white people perhaps are in white spaces, but you can connect with people who are different from you, from diverse backgrounds, via Twitter, via LinkedIn. So like read blogs from people. Like on the Diverse Ed blog, I put a blog out every couple of days. The blog this week is about is she Somali? And Bar Hersey talks about the questions she got day in, day out as a Somali woman who's teaching. So I think there's no excuse these days. There's so much literature, there's so many films, there's so many documentaries out there. You just need to commit and actually sort of like spend the time watching and listening.
Brilliant, thank you. And I would definitely recommend that everybody follows Hannah, not in person, follows her on Twitter, please, but just to see what she's sharing, because I mean, she's really a force to be reckoned with. So thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Matt. Cheers.
See you. Great. Okay, so we're really coming towards the end, and I wanted to leave ample time for us to now have a panel discussion where we can hear from different voices within education at all leadership positions. So we have a head teacher, a former head teacher, we have somebody within SLT, and then we have a more junior teacher, but talking about culture change, because a lot of what we talked about today is about changing the culture of our schools, getting our schools to really work for all of our students and to ensure that all students can achieve their potential. So now I want to invite our panel, and I will then ask them to each introduce themselves separately, but we have a fantastic panel of contributors today. So we have one other person as well. Fantastic. Thank you. So first of all, we'll start with Javed. Do you want to do a very quick introduction?
I'd like to say thank you, Natalie, for having me. I'm Javed Welter, and I'm an MFL teacher in a secondary school in Birmingham.
Thank you. And we have Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hello. So yeah, my name is Mark Martin. I'm a computer science teacher by trade. And also I get to, work with the tech sector to really think about homegrown talent and how do they get more, representation into these jobs that they promote.
Okay, perfect. And also Alison Creel.
Hello, I'm Alison, and I was a head teacher and a CEO for a really long time, but I now work independently, supporting schools with leadership and doing a whole range of things, I suppose, public speaking. And I also recently set up one of my favourite groups, which is called Talking Circle.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I am going to ask you each the same question just to get started. And we have 15 or just under 15 minutes for this session. So I really do hope I will get an opportunity to get some contributions from the floor. I know they're slightly delayed. If you have any questions, please do put those in. So first of all, I'll start with Jave. What do you see as ways of genuinely being able to change the culture in schools so that schools are really working to ensure that all children can do well and we're getting rid of some of the issues that we've been talking about today?
Excellent question. I believe that to change some of the issues, school need to also look at the diverse staff. I believe that also, like me, I'm 0.7% of black male teachers in England. I believe that school needs to employ more black male teachers to raise aspiration amongst all pupils, but especially black boys and black girls. And I also believe that potentially we need to look above as well. Potentially Ofsted need to also look at to hold school accountable for their diversity in their leadership. That'll be very important because Ofsted is not doing that currently. And if they do that, it may create a change. And I believe that also we need to see more intellect in the curriculum. We need to diversify the curriculum. That's very important. Thank you.
Brilliant. Two great points. When I went to school, I never had a black teacher and I never studied a black author or learned anything about black history. So I hope things have changed quite significantly, but there's a long way to go. Thanks so much, Jabe. Same question to you, Mark. What do you see is important in driving culture change in schools?
I think we need to normalize the experience for a lot of our colleagues who are Black and African and Caribbean, because I think at the moment, sometimes with these flash pan initiatives or flash pan programs, they're very temporary. And if we want to see a long-term change in education, we need to see long-term commitments from the DFE, from these academy trusts, really supporting and nurturing our homegrown talent. Because ultimately, one of the things that I say to some of the leaders of the industry is that if you're not supporting, that black teacher talent, they will leave. They go to probably Dubai and teach, or Singapore, or somewhere else around the world, because they're not getting that support in the UK. So it's really important that, how do we kind of think about some long-term initiatives to really support our black talent teachers?
Got it. Thank you. And same question again, Alison, and then I'll delve into questions.
Okay, so I think one of the points that Jave raised about the fact that we need to make schools accountable for changes is a crucial thing. I think that there is no excuse anymore for schools that don't have a diverse staff at all, and I think we need to stop tolerating the excuses. And I think that if governors aren't held accountable for ensuring that their senior leadership team is representative, because then that gives everybody hope, then we're going to remain stuck, and we're not going to see any change at all. So it's not just about people who are directly working in schools, but governors and trustees and so on. I think that it's really important that schools do a load of work around celebrating our differences, because when we start talking about the fact that everybody's different and we start celebrating our uniqueness, then maybe that's one way of not just celebrating the black and brown pupils and members of staff in the school, but it also maybe means that white pupils and staff might feel less threatened, because it's important to celebrate difference, because who wants to be the same? So if we stop that kind of herd mentality and start celebrating each one of us as individuals, then it could be one way forward.
Fantastic, thank you. And I also just wanted to look a little bit at your own experience within the school where you were most recently ahead, because I know that you drove a huge culture change over the time that you were there and completely transformed the performance and the outcomes for students at that school. Are there any specific examples or case studies from your time there that maybe might be useful to some of the audience today?
It really was about Well, firstly, I had an incredible staff. So it was a very diverse staff, but but not just diverse, but truly excellent. So I only ever went and employed people who I knew were going to be truly remarkable for the community. We did a lot of work around about getting the children to aspire to greater things, and not always getting them to think about things in a sort of traditional way. So at the minute, the big thing is that if you go to Oxbridge or if you go to a Russell Group University, that means that you are going to be this truly remarkable person. But it was really about getting each child to recognise just what they were good at. We used to call it having your gold. So if you know what your gold is and you work really, really hard to nurture your goal, because every single one of us is gold. So not everybody is going to be great at English, maths and science. It was actually looking at the curriculum in a much, much broader way so that everybody could see themselves as being successful. And then getting the children to think very specifically about where they wanted to be. So every single year at the beginning of the year, we would get them to write down what their plan A was. And with the youngest children, it would be a drawing of what they wanted to be when they grew up. And with the children in the middle, they'd start writing down what their plan is. And then the children who were slightly older, their plan A and plan B, just in case things didn't happen. And getting children to recognize that we can all bounce back. It's okay if things don't always go according to plan. We've all got that within us. But when you get children to think about where they want to be and they plan their route, then school becomes much more significant. So by planning, it's saying if a child says that they want to become a doctor one day, then where do you need to be when you're 11? Where do you need to be when you're 16? Where do you need to be when you are 18? Where do you want to go to, and all of those sorts of things? We talk about Russell Group, and yes, it's great to go to a Russell Group school, but also recognizing it's a club and people pay to be in that club. So don't look at where people don't go to Bristol because people say Bristol's a great university. Go to Bristol because Bristol is going to serve you best. It's going to be the most dynamic, exciting course, and you're going to be there. And we also did a whole load of things around belonging, because when children and staff believe that they belong, they fly. So in a nutshell, that was kind of it.
So much there. That's fantastic. I think the two things that particularly stood out for me, this is nurture your gold. I think that's fantastic strapline, and the importance of resilience. I think, yeah, the phenomenal work that you did at the school that you were with. So when you were talking about thinking about where they're headed, this is a question for Mark, because you're in the tech space and we know that tech is the future. We know that we don't have enough people going into careers in tech, but we know that increasingly those are the skills that we need to drive the economy. So how can we ensure that particularly students from BAME backgrounds, Black students, are attracted into tech and have great careers waiting for them on the other side?
So apart from the digital skill gap, we've got an awareness gap. So how much of our young people know that some of the buildings that they walk past in the morning are tech hubs, or, you know, the hipsters are moving in and doing amazing stuff. I work in Lambeth, and you wouldn't believe that we've got one of the biggest tech companies in the world based in Lambeth. And when I ask community, when I ask teachers and parents, do you know that, you know, you're probably about 5 miles away from the biggest tech company in the world? They don't know, and it's IBM. They're at in Waterloo. So it's about how do we kind of break down some of these silos of who knows what. And then ultimately there's this really important thing. So when we changed from ICT to computer science in 2014, there was a 50% dropout rate of our Black students pursuing that subject. And we didn't ask the question. So when I was speaking to the Computer Science Association, did anyone flag this? You knew that the data was there. You saw that there was a dropout rate. And then the best of our Black students that get into university, they're 16% more unemployable when they got a first-class degree in computer science. So it's not even like the kids that have dropped out or the kids that have got a 2/3. It's the best of the pack. And then when they do get into the industry, they don't see themselves in these jobs. So a lot of the boardrooms, if you look at the biggest tech companies in the world, there's 0% Black British in those boardrooms. And then what's really fascinating for me is that there was a facial recognition technology that arrested a 14-year-old Black school kid on the way home from school. And if you check the lineage of what I've just said, is that where we don't have representation in technology, the technology then comes back to exclude, harm, and potentially one day even fatally kill someone. So for me, my job, what I've been doing in the last couple of years, is much more than teaching the curriculum. It's about actually showing our young people that you've got to be the future. And, you know, once you get into these jobs, we were expecting you to help us to make a better society, root out some of these biases that we face, because in school, we're trying to teach you that, give you that firm foundation knowledge. But to round up, I think it's every teacher's responsibility to connect our young people to our communities. A lot of our young people don't understand the opportunities that exist in their communities, and that probably one day they can build a company there or build a tech company too.
Great, thank you. No, I think that's a really important point. I think some of the work that you're doing to engage corporates so that they become more diverse and create real opportunity for Black students is fantastic. And do you want to just talk to the organisation that you're part of for that?
Yeah, so yeah, I set up this organisation called UK Black Tech with 11 other tech professionals, and what we really wanted to do is basically connect and represent innovation and technology within across the UK, looking from a Black lens. And you know, we're starting to see it more and more. Like, we get news headlines every week about facial recognition or picking up dark skin, and we're hearing things about subconscious bias within the tech. And my organization, what we try and do is show greater representation within this space, because ultimately we would love to have, you know, an education system, a tech system that is just about equality and equity and justice, and it just doesn't exclude anyone. So that's why we set this up, to really promote that and champion that.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks, Mark. And then Jave, so you're relatively newer in your career in teaching. How are you experiencing the culture within the teaching profession broadly, not just at your school? And how are you seeing your future within teaching and the opportunity to grow your career there?
In my school, overall, I'm seeing it as a very bright. With everything that's going on at the moment, with all the different movements, I'm seeing shows like yours. People are communicating the uncomfortable, and I believe that we need to do that. We need to make people uncomfortable for it to be normalized. We need shows like this. We need to highlight to people that there is obviously a plight. There is a need for Black male teachers and Black women teachers. We need more role models in school. We need more people who can inspire the next generation. As you're aware, with what's going on in the news, there's been a range of incidents, and if we look carefully, it's been going on for generations. It's been going on 50 years, and it's still going on now, and nothing has changed. If you look at it, the staff are probably the same rate when they were in 1960, when there was the first Black head teacher, Yvonne Colony, and right now. There's not been much change really into progression for teachers. And when they're retiring, there's no successional planning. So we don't have no successional leadership. So for example, when a Black teacher is retiring, there's none of a Black person to take over, whereas that's happening in other schools. So we need to think about that long-term planning for our next generation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So you see the future as bright, but you think there's a lot of work to do, because we've got to get our plans in place. So we kind of ensure that progression and that movement forward. So thank you so much. I want to finish on time, so we just have a minute or two left. But thank you for your contributions. It was really difficult to follow whether there are any questions from the floor, but I can see lots of positive feedback about your contributions. So thanks again. Really appreciate it. And if any of you want to reach out to any of the speakers today, including the speakers to the panel, please do contact us and we will definitely put you in touch. So just in closing, if we can put up my screen again, hopefully you can see that. I just wanted to make a few closing remarks. I hope that you found today's session really helpful. I hope that you learned something. I hope that it was inspiring and uplifting, but at the same time that we asked challenging questions about how we really do improve education so that all children, and as I said, noted same outcomes as their peers, can achieve their potential. We see this as an ongoing dialogue. We definitely embrace the fact that Black history is longer than just a month. These are important topics that we want to continue to engage in. So please do reach out to us at any time, whether it's during this month or after, so we can continue this dialogue. A couple of other quick points to make. If you're not aware, we have a database of great interventions, organisations that can go in and support schools. Obviously, in person is now difficult, but we do have over 1,000 youth organisations registered with us. So if you're looking for something really great and impactful that can help your students, please do contact us or go to connect.edukit.org.uk. You can look through our database and you can also engage with us if there's something that you would like to see there that's not there at the moment. And there's certainly a lot for Black students, so I would definitely encourage you to use that. It's a completely free service that we offer. Another thing is, got so much positive vibes from this TeachMeet. We want to organise more, particularly this year, again, meaning that we can't have in-person TeachMeets. If there's another topic that you'd like us to organise a TeachMeet on, perhaps it's around the environment or LGBTQ or literacy or something else in education. We typically do these on mental health and wellbeing. So again, please do reach out to us. We're happy to come together with your school or other schools in the area and just get a dialogue going, organise something else. We'll do the heavy lifting, but we'll bring people together. So do let us know. Again, you can email us at info@edukit.org.uk to do that. And finally, just also in closing, the free giveaway. Don't forget that if you book a demo with us in the month of October, there's no pressure whatsoever on you to buy. It's an opportunity to find out what we've built, because we really do want to make sure that it's meeting the needs of your students. So we'd love to have a conversation with you about that. And there is that giveaway, plus we're linking that up with our competition, and we will let you know the name of the winners, and there'll be 3 winners of the hamper as well as the EduKit mugs. Then we'll be doing that at the end of the month on Twitter. So thank you again for participating. If you're watching this on catch up, it's not too late. Do engage with us. Thanks again for your time. Thank you to all of our contributors. I thought I was blown away by the presentations. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And I think I'll leave it there so you can get back to your evenings. Thanks again, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.